There is a pain even more cruel than watching your divine masculine pull away from you. It is realizing that someone very close to him is poisoning the image he has of you, planting seeds of doubt, fear, and devaluation, until he starts to believe that the safest thing he can do is walk away from you. It's not just about losing a relationship. It feels like watching a third person reaching into the backstage of your soul story, rewriting a connection you know in your bones was written long before this lifetime. This pain is not the ordinary jealousy of a mundane love triangle. It feels more like forces that are not yours are working against your destiny, using the voice of someone he deeply respects to silence the voice of the soul that once recognized you. It is an invisible war being fought in his psyche, and you are here because you feel like the main victim, when in truth, you are the catalyst of this whole battle. Maybe you are exactly there right now. You feel that on some level he recognized you, that something lit up in his eyes when you met, that the intensity between you went far beyond, "We had a good time." But suddenly his tone changed. Sentences that don't sound like him begin to appear. "This isn't normal. You're too much. You're overthinking everything. My friends think you're a problem. My family doesn't trust you." It's as if he started talking to your soul with the borrowed voice of other people. He repeats arguments that do not match what he actually experienced with you, but mirror instead the fear and limitation of a social circle that has no idea how to hold the depth of what is happening. That outside voice sounds so reasonable, so full of fake common sense and concern, that he, in his half-awakened state, grabs onto it like a life jacket to escape the emotional tidal wave you represent. And then the question that won't leave your mind is, if this connection is something that belongs to the two of us at a soul level, why does someone so close to my divine masculine want so badly for him to leave me? In this video, the veil is going to be lifted from the psychological and energetic dynamic behind this interference. You are going to see who, in truth, wants your divine masculine to abandon you, and the crucial attitudes the divine feminine must adopt right now to reverse the energy of this situation without waging war against him. The last attitude is the one thing that can force him to choose his own truth, or set you free from a destiny that was never really yours. Stay all the way to the end, because what you are about to understand will move you from the frequency of pain into the frequency of power. Before you can know what to do, you have to see what is really happening behind those apparently rational pieces of advice he is getting. On the path of twin flames, the divine masculine does not awaken in a vacuum. He awakens inside a field of invisible loyalties. That field is made of family beliefs, cultural expectations, church or spiritual community messages, friend groups, and even the unresolved contracts of ex-partners who have always told him who he is allowed to love, how much he is allowed to feel, how far he is allowed to go before he stops being the good son, the good guy, the reliable man he worked so hard to become. That field is not always consciously malicious. It is conservative. Its job is to protect the status quo. And in energy terms, his status quo is his predictability. When the connection with you shows up, it doesn't just shake his heart. It threatens the whole structure these people use to feel safe about his life, and very often about their own. That's why, many times, the loudest pressure for him to walk away from you doesn't come from someone who personally hates you, but from somebody terrified of losing the role they've always had in his psyche. The mother who has always been his emotional center and moral compass. The friend who has always been his partner in crime for staying shallow and detached. The ex who never reached the depth you awakened, and who now clings unconsciously to whatever energetic hold she still has. The group of buddies who have always seen him as rational, predictable, one of the guys. When you walk in as the mirror of his soul, these figures sense, even if they can't name it, that their place is at risk. They feel the earthquake of his individuation beginning, and for their psyche, his individuation is the end of the world as they know it. So they don't just attack you. They attack the part of him that is starting to get free. They talk badly about you as a cover, but what they are really fighting is the version of him that dares to be real, that dares to feel a radical vulnerability. They are the unconscious gatekeepers of his comfort prison. From the perspective of depth psychology, this third person is the embodiment of a piece of his own shadow. It is that inner voice that always told him, "Don't feel, don't open up, don't love too much. This is dangerous," now projected into a flesh and blood person who volunteers to channel that fear. The unconscious is always trying to materialize what has been repressed. If he carries a huge fear of surrender and of his own depth, that fear will show up as an external advisor. That is why it hurts so much to hear. My buddy thinks you're bad for me. My mom says you'll destroy my life. My friend swears you're manipulative. You feel like they're talking about a cartoon version of you. And he is believing the cartoon instead of trusting his lived experience at your side. What used to be an internal complex of fear around intimacy has moved outwards and grown a face, a name, an opinion. Your divine masculine is not simply being seduced by a person. He is being hijacked by his own fear, now projected, validated, and amplified by his inner circle. And this is where so many women with strong feminine energy lose themselves completely. The automatic reaction, powered by the wound of feeling unworthy, is to try to prove to these people that you are safe, good, not a threat, that you're not here to steal him from anyone. You start explaining yourself, justifying, softening your truth, toning down your intensity so you can be digestible to his mom's emotions, to his friend's limited worldview, to the ex's expectations that still hover in his field. Suddenly, you are no longer in a soul relationship with your divine masculine. You are standing in an invisible courtroom, begging for acquittal in front of a jury that was never interested in understanding you, only in keeping control over him. Your energy drifts away from your own center into this exhausting, hopeless project of managing your image for a group that had already condemned you the moment you woke him up. The deeper you go into this game, the more you lose. Because what these people are feeling is not a lack of information about who you are. They are feeling threat. A threat to the stability of his ego, and a threat to their comfort zone. And threat does not dissolve with explanations. It dissolves in the presence of someone who cannot be moved. Every time you try to convince his circle that you are the best choice, you confirm to their unconscious that there must be something wrong with you that needs to be defended, packaged, and apologized for. You step right into the narrative that paints you as a risk, not as truth. Without realizing it, you hand power to their story by submitting yourself to their validation process. The game you end up playing is the game of becoming small, predictable, easy to swallow. Ironically, it is your magnitude, your sacred unpredictability, your wild soul that drew him to you in the first place. What almost nobody tells you is that, in a twin flame dynamic, you are not the one being truly tested. He is. When somebody close to your divine masculine tells him to drop you, the universe is revealing, in plain sight, which voice he still believes more. The voice of his soul, which recognizes in you an uncomfortable and irresistible mirror, or the voice of fear, which dresses up as logic, just being realistic, just wanting what's best for him. This is the moment when it becomes clear whether he is ready to be a man in front of his own truth, or whether he still needs to be the boy who obeys other people's expectations. It is the final exam of his individuation. Is he guided by inner integrity, or by social convention and childhood loyalty contracts? And your only real function in that moment is not to fight for him, but to create the space in which he can make that choice in total freedom. That does not mean you sit there helpless, accepting anything. It means the battlefield is not where your wound wants to fight. Your wound wants to scream at his mother, confront the friend who badmouths you, send that long message to the ex who keeps circling around, demand that he choose you and cut everyone else off. Your soul knows that this only shoves him deeper into their arms. Because to a scared masculine ego, every attempt you make to control who he talks to or listens to becomes evidence supporting the story they are selling. She's dangerous, she wants to isolate you, she's going to pull you away from us. Your attempt to control gets twisted into proof that their warnings are right. Your intervention, no matter how loving, sabotages his process of becoming an autonomous, self-led man. So what do you do when you feel that someone close to him is telling him to abandon you? First, stop competing and start choosing. You are not competing for a man's love. You are choosing which versions of that man your soul is willing to walk with. As long as you are trying to prove that you deserve a seat at his table, you are forgetting the question that flips the entire energy of power. Do I truly want to build a life with someone who needs other people's permission to honor what he feels with me? When you start asking yourself this question with brutal honesty, something in your field shifts. You stop being the victim of a conspiracy and become the guardian of your own doorway, the priestess of your own temple. The energy you radiate stops begging for approval and starts vibrating as sovereign choice. And sovereignty is the frequency that most powerfully magnetizes an awakened masculine. Second, You bring the focus back from the outer drama to your inner axis. Instead of wasting your energy trying to guess what his mother, his friend, or his ex said to him, you start tracking what they trigger in you. What wound are they pressing? The fear of being replaced? The old story of never being chosen first? The family pattern of always being the different one? The one nobody truly understood? The pressure his circle exerts is not a random event. It is a mirror of your own belonging wounds. And if you are truly on a spiritual path, you will use that mirror to heal your roots, not as more proof that the world is unfair. The only reason their opinion has this much power over you is that it resonates with a limiting belief that was already living inside you. If you were 100% anchored in your own truth and value, their words would sound like static noise in the background. The work is to silence the inner static. Third, you have to step out of the role of defender of the relationship and return to being the living embodiment of your own truth. What most deeply magnetizes the masculine is not a woman fighting for him, but a woman fiercely committed to herself, so absorbed in her individuation and purpose that the world around her becomes secondary. A woman who keeps expanding, creating, serving, refining her energy even when he is confused, split, or listening to every voice but his own. The more you bend to fit the narrative of his family and friends, the more he feels, without being able to explain it, that he is losing the woman who woke him up. He loses the challenge your presence represents. The more you rise, even bleeding, in the direction of what you came here to be, the more he feels that your presence is not a threat to his destiny, but an invitation to finally take ownership of it. Your light does not need justification. Your mission is to shine, not to convince. And here we touch a point that goes straight to masculine pride. He needs to realize, without you spelling it out, that the one person actually standing on the side of his soul is you, not the ones trying to protect him from any kind of pain at all costs. The divine masculine, deep down, craves truth, even when it hurts. The one urging him to let you go is, in practice, asking him to abandon the part of himself that wants to grow, feel, and be radically honest. The one inviting him to look straight at what he feels, even if it breaks old loyalties and comfort zones, is you. His decision is not really between you and his mother, you and his friends, you and his ex. It is between following his soul or staying obedient to fear disguised as care. It is a choice between his authentic calling and a neurotic conformity. The third-person test reveals the integrity of your soul bond. If he bows to other people's fear, he is showing that his connection to his own center is still fragile, that his ego is louder than his self. That is not your failure. That is your liberation. It is proof that you did your work, and he has not yet done his. When the contract breaks, it is not a punishment. It is a realignment. But what if he chooses fear? What if, in the end, he does let himself be convinced and walks away from you in order to keep the peace with his circle? That is the part that cuts the deepest, and at the same time, the part that frees you the most. Because when a divine masculine chooses to betray his own truth just to remain loyal to other people's comfort, he is not only saying no to you. He is saying no to his own soul and his own evolution. He is choosing the path of least resistance, which, over time, becomes the path of the greatest regret. And as hard as it is to accept right now, you do not actually want to build your life with someone who still has to sacrifice what is most authentic in him to keep a seat at the table of people who never wanted to see him free. The pain you feel now is the grief over the potential he threw away, not over the reality of who he has just shown himself to be. Your temptation will be to think you lost. But on a spiritual journey, the one who truly loses is always the one who remains hostage to the external voice, the one who negotiates his soul for an illusion of safety. You are being invited to another kind of victory, the quiet victory of continuing to choose your own truth, even when the man you love still cannot choose his. That does not mean closing your heart or becoming cynical. It means understanding that your flame cannot depend on someone else's courage to stay lit. When you live like that, with time, one of two things happens. Either life brings this masculine back to you in a different version, more responsible before his own soul, free of toxic loyalties, or life places in your path someone who will never need a translator to understand what he feels for you, someone whose self is integrated and who no longer projects his own shadow onto external advisors. The beauty of this process, as painful as it is that it is inevitable. You are being forced to become your own highest authority. Your source of validation is no longer his gaze or his circle's approval, but your inner compass. That is where the real strength of the divine feminine lives. In the capacity to be her own sun, to generate her own light, to no longer orbit around anyone else's gravity. That is the essence of individuation. To deepen your understanding of what is happening, you need to see the four main forms of psychic attack that this third person can embody, because they are, in truth, the four types of fear your divine masculine does not want to face. The first attack, the mother, the matrix of conformity. This figure, often his actual mother but not always, it can be any primary origin system, says, "If you choose her, you are abandoning me." The attack here is emotional. The mother or authority projects such a deep emptiness that his choice for you is coded as ultimate betrayal. The hidden message is, be loyal to where you came from, not to where your soul wants to go. The masculine, trained to protect and to be loyal, feels a crushing guilt complex. He fears becoming the bad son, the ungrateful one. Your role is not to fight this figure, but to root yourself in the knowing that the highest loyalty is always to the soul. Your emotional stability and independence show him that freedom is not destruction, it is wholeness. The second attack, the friend, the comfort circle. The attack here is social and identity-based. The friend or group says, if you stay with her, you won't be one of us anymore. This person represents his old ego state. The guy who jokes everything away, who numbs himself with work, Netflix, alcohol, or distractions, who never has to feel too much. You, as his twin flame, force him to face depth, vulnerability, and the unknown. The friend, afraid of losing his partner in superficial living, starts labeling you. Too intense, crazy, drama, toxic. They are not really attacking you. They are defending the old version of him, the status quo of emotional mediocrity. What they are saying is, come back to the shallow end, it's safer here. Your response is productive silence. You do not defend yourself in that court. You defend your depth by living it. Your joy, your expansion, your personal success are the strongest counter-argument. The third attack, the X or the unresolved contract. This figure does not have to be physically present. Sometimes it is just the energetic echo of a past relationship he never really closed. She whispers from the back of his mind, every deep woman will demand too much and suffocate you. The X stands for his unhealed relationship trauma. You, with your authenticity and depth, trigger the fear of reliving the pain of real intimacy. She becomes the symbol of the pain loop he is desperate not to repeat. The divine masculine pulls away not because you are just like her, but because you are the opposite, and your opposite requires a full-body yes he is terrified to give. Your only healthy strategy is to close your energetic door to drama. As long as you allow the bond between you to be defined by his trauma with her, you remain trapped in her shadow. When you heal your own abandonment wounds, you step out of that karmic loop and send a clear signal. I am not available to play out that story. The fourth attack, the mentor, or the voice of false spirituality. Very subtly, this can be a pastor, a spiritual teacher, a coach, or even an online healing community that tells him, this connection is not from God, it's not healthy, it's just projection and attachment. The attack here is spiritual and intellectual. This voice uses buzzwords like light, shadow, alignment, karmic pattern, but in a distorted way, to convince him that what he feels for you is a distraction from his true mission. The fear being activated is the fear of the responsibility that real soul love demands. Soul-level love requires work, truth, ego death. It is far more comfortable to believe wrong person, wrong time, than to face the inner work your presence calls him into. Your response is to keep the integrity of your own faith. No one outside you can define your soul contract. Only your soul can. Anchor yourself in your truth and refuse to outsource the definition of what is sacred in your life. When you see these four attacks clearly, you recognize that the third person is just an avatar of his internal resistance. They are messengers of his ego. Your job is not to fight them, but to become energetically immune to them, alchemizing the energy you used to spend on reaction into energy invested in creation and manifestation. The mastery of the divine feminine is not about convincing. It is about being. The divine masculine will only choose his soul when the pain of betraying himself becomes greater than the fear of disappointing his circle. You cannot manufacture that pain for him. You can only be the mirror. You are invited to become so integrous, so whole, so focused on your own life mission, that his presence, although cherished, does not define your existence. When your life becomes your masterpiece, your art, your individuation journey, the relationship with him becomes a blessing, not a condition. It is only in that space of non-need that the true magnetism of twin flame energy shows up. The movie might be over, but the psychic drama is still running. Your task is to step out of the drama and into conscious action. And conscious action here does not mean calling him, texting him, or making one more speech. It means devoting yourself to 3 transformative practices. First, whenever you feel the sting of devaluation or the anger at this third person, do not react. Sit in stillness and affirm inside yourself, I pull back all my projections from my divine masculine and from his circle, and I call back to my center all the energy I spent trying to control or convince him. Their opinion is their shadow. It is not my truth. In that moment, you stop feeding their story with your energy. The battle stops being about them and becomes about your energetic self-sufficiency. The second practice is strengthening your self-access. You need to identify your own unconscious loyalties, the ones that make you shrink to fit into other people's fear. Where in your life were you taught to become smaller in order to be loved? Where in your family story were you the strange one, the black sheep, the outsider, always trying to finally fit in? The rejection coming from his circle is a dark gift that exposes exactly where you still need to heal your need to belong. The work here is accepting that your authenticity matters more than your popularity. Accepting that your depth will make shallow people uncomfortable, and that this is not a problem to be solved. And finally, there is the activation of your soul mission. When he is listening to the outer voice, your energy can collapse. The only antidote to that collapse is purpose. What is your work in the world, independent of him? What is your art, your calling, your contribution? When you are actively engaged with your mission, the energy of desperation melts into creative flow. The divine masculine is not pulled in by a woman who waits. He is pulled in by a woman who creates. Your creations are your strongest magnet. When you are in your mission, you are at the peak of your frequency. And that frequency is the only thing that can ever truly force a masculine to realign with his own soul. Remember the wisdom that guides all soul connections. The journey of twin flames is not really about finding your other half. It is about finding your wholeness. The other is the mirror that forces you to face what is out of alignment inside you. The circle of people pushing him to leave you is nothing more than the reflection of the part of him that is not ready for wholeness, and the part of you that still looks to the outside for proof that you are enough. You are not fighting his mother. You are not fighting his friend. You are confronting your own habit of negotiating your value. The only victory that truly matters is becoming the version of yourself who will never again need permission from anyone, not even from the man she loves, to be whole and honest. This path, which may look like a story of unrequited love, is actually an epic of forced self-discovery. It is the universe saying, you carry too much power to waste it trying to prove yourself to people. Come back to your center and use that power to create the life only you can live. The pain of being rejected on the outside is the price of your freedom on the inside. The time he takes to make up his mind is the time you are being gifted to build the unshakable foundation of your sovereignty. If you feel that this message has just described exactly what is happening behind the scenes of your story, write in the comments, I choose my truth, to anchor that decision inside you. That sentence is not a magic spell. It is a psychic commitment. A commitment to never again making yourself smaller to fit into someone else's fear, not even the fear of the man you love. A commitment that your compass will be your own soul, not the approval of a control circle. A commitment that the pain of being authentic is still better than the comfort of living as an imposter. And if you want practical, step-by-step tools to strengthen your inner axis, instead of living hostage to other people's opinions about your love, to identify and dissolve these invisible loyalties that are sabotaging your process, and to turn the pain of outside interference into unshakable creative power, the ebooks, 21 Days of Transformation with Carl Jung, and Soul Survival Manual, were created to walk you through that. 21 Days of Transformation with Carl Jung helps you integrate your shadow so the voice of fear stops projecting itself onto external advisors. Soul Survival Manual gives you grounded strategies to keep your energy intact and focused on your purpose, even when the world around you, and the people around him, keep trying to drag you back into the drama. The links are in the first pinned comment. Thank you for having the courage to look at this dynamic without lying to yourself. This is the kind of truth that hurts on the way in, but liberates on the way out. And the freedom you are claiming now is non-negotiable. Your life is about to become a living manifestation of your own magnificence. See you in the next video.